Welcome to the Stars Aligned Dramas and Dreams podcast, where the infinite sky meets the starry world of dramas. We're your guides to the cosmos, from heart-stopping queer love stories to straight dramas of unexpected love.
In every unforgettable moment in between that make us swoon, laugh, and cry. And, of course, we'll sprinkle in a little stardust along the way.
I'm Nyxi, your drama enthusiast ready to break down the best and sometimes most chaotic storylines, filming techniques, and the worlds we can't stop obsessing over.
And I'm Cyrus, here to delve into characters, themes, and symbolisms that invoke emotions that resonate with us in powerful and lasting ways.
Each week, we'll explore the stellar journey of love, identity, and connection, one drama and one dream at a time. Today, we orbit the series Satellite, where we discuss everything a series has to offer. Our satellite this week is orbiting the Spirealm.
So, gather your stardust, find your spot under the stars, and let's dive in.
Let's begin by taking a look into the stars. We're taking a closer look at the synopses that captivate us and the stars on and off screen who make every moment shine. Join us this week as we stargaze into the captivating world of the Spiral.
But before we can stargaze deeper, we must start by discussing the basics. The Spirealm is a 2024 Chinese drama produced by iQIYI. This show can be watched on Viki, and the rebroadcast has 38 episodes with a duration of 42 minutes, which makes the drama approximately 26 hours and 36 minutes long.
The synopsis reads, Ling Jiu Shi finds himself inexplicably thrusted inside a mind-bending reality dictated by an enigmatic virtual reality game where he must pass 12 doors to escape. The catch? Each door initiates new mysteries to solve and conditions to abide by. Source IMDb. Adapted from the web novel Kaleidoscope of Death by Z Shi. Such a simple summary, but I think it works for the most part. Because the whole thing really is, yes, would I've loved some details about, Nan Renzi, about a little bit more about that issue. But in reality, Ling Jiu Shi's problem with falling into the doors was essentially the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that technically just state that he did that. And I love that and it's actually very similar to how I explain this series to other people when it comes to the drama. Because when I explain the drama to people, I explain it often as virtual reality transmigration meets life or death escape rooms. Because that is pretty much what it is, except for the catch is that you have to do this 12 times. It gets harder, especially after you get past, I think, was it the 5th or 6th door? And on top of that, you die in it. You die in real life, which is the life and death part. And to make it worse, you do get a little bit of a treat by getting out. Because once you get out, you get a little bit of break. And the doors take a little while to come by. Because I think if I remember correctly, when you first start, the doors start faster, but they start getting slower and slower and further out. Because I think they prolonged essentially that your possible death. So it got longer and further out the more you had to wait for your door to show up.
The psychological horror of that is insane.
It really is. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
This game, this show would be an absolute nightmare if it was your actual life.
Oh, for sure. And we're not even touching the fact that how the novel took it. The novel's version, crazy different than the series version. The series version was at least modernized, so it was like a video game kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The book was apparently you were reaching your death, and death said, I'm going to give you a second chance, but I'm going to make it incredibly hard. So that's the biggest difference in the two.
I'm going to torture you so you just hope to die.
Essentially, that's what it was. But as for the summary, I do think it's pretty spot on for what you need for the story.
Yeah.
It's definitely pulling you in through the thriller aspect.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And a lot of the thriller aspects is learning stuff out about the show and the storyline as you go. So I think it gives just enough for you to be interested in the story without compromising on the thriller draw to it.
Mm-hmm.
The stars that guide the Spirealm shine brightly. Let's meet the cast and crew who make it shine. Our main couple is Shashi Guang as Raun Nanzhu and Hong Junji as Ling Jiu Shi. Other significant roles are Lu Runge, who play both Xing Yisha and Xing Shanli. Liu Xiaobei plays Yi Dongyan, and simply because I love her, Lu Menglin plays Tan Zhao Zhao. Danny Pong was the director, who has worked on an extensive list of shows, unfortunately, none of which I recognize.
And while there were a lot more talented people who worked on the show, we unfortunately do not have the time to talk about everyone, but we would like to further highlight some of our thoughts about the cast and crew.
Go ahead, make fun of me. Go ahead.
I still think it's funny is you were reading the names off, and I feel like our southern accent really came into a set of these names because as the main character, one of the main characters being Ling Jiu Shi, I heard Ling Jiu Shi.
I don't know why, like, that specific sound, like, my like, accent won't allow me to say. Like, I've done that every time, like, since, like, we started the series, and, like, every time I've talked about him, like, that like, I just can't say his name right, and I feel really bad, like, I try really
Wait, so
hard.
you have been doing them the past episodes we've talked about them?
I think so. I don't think I don't think I've ever said it. I don't think my tongue allows me to do that.
And then, is that probably why you just call him Ling Ling?
Yeah. That is the
So was
exact
you
reason.
then Jisha?
That's
Jisha.
the exact reason. Oh, Nyxi.
There's no R.
Tell that to my tongue.
Okay, tongue. Stop putting an R on Ling Jiu Shi. Sure. Ling Jiu Shi. It's so funny. It's not even our language, but like it's funny hearing that and being like, "Oh, that's not what I've heard being pronounced." It's okay. You tried.
I will be calling him Ling Ling throughout the rest of the episode anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
When I watched it with Cyrus, that was the time that I got to pick up some empty pieces that I didn't really get clearly through my version when I first watched it, as well as like one of the terms that threw me off in whoever translated the newest translations for it was that I learned them as door gods, but I think they get what translated to like door ghost or something.
Think so.
And I kind of don't door
But
god, and I
I
kind
was
of
so
don't
used to
like
you
it. And
calling them door gods that like my brain immediately just like auto read door ghost as door god,
mm-hmm.
just because that was the terminology that my brain was already like clung to.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I just favor the ones I originally came across, but I also like the term door god over door ghost due to the
But
fact
yeah.
that they were usually the one in control of the door and towards
Mhm.
in terms of making in terms of like going after players when they went
Yeah.
over the they messed up over taboos. So
Mhm.
which they were enforcers. So therefore I thought of them more like gods than ghosts. So at least in my mind.
Yeah.
So I kind of preferred the door gods, which is probably what we're going to refer to them for the rest of this. So there's a tip for the future
Yeah.
parts of this long, probably long episode.
Nyxi's got a lot to say.
I don't know how I'm going to fit it all, but we're going to fit it all somehow.
We set the stage, and now it's time to delve deeper into the Spirealm. Spoilers ahead as we start with character constellations.
By mapping out character constellations, we chart the growth of our favorite characters, exploring how they shine brighter over time, evolve, and form unique constellations with the characters around them. Because, of course, we got to start with the main characters.
Ah, yes. Every character in this show is like the ones we care about, at least. So good.
Dang. I love how you tacked that on. The ones we care about.
There are just some
So,
assholes in this show that like I couldn't give two shits about, frankly.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair and valid. So, having said that, though, do we want to start with the actual main character, which is Ling Jiu Shi, or do we need to talk about Raun Nanzhu?
I feel comfortable talking about Ling Ling first.
Okay, let's talk about Ling Ling. This cat-loving genius. I swear.
Honestly, yeah, that's just Ling Ling's tagline.
Like, this man stumbled across a demo version of this game and was like, I really like this. And then found out that he could not play further than the first episode. Sorry, the first level. And to the point that he died once, you can't play it again. And I think this also made him lose his first streak ever. Because I think, not ever, but like, I think he had like a huge
It's like
streak.
900
in 99
something. Yeah.
I think it was one off from 1,000.
Yeah.
And he would have won 1,000 had he not lost in that game, but he was like kind of upset he didn't win the game, and so he's like, "Ugh." Turns out he can't even play because it's just a demo, and then apparently it freezes up and messes up after playing it to that far, and then turns around, goes home, and just mysteriously gets a package of the game with the game on it, puts it in his computer and plays it, which he is relatively smart, but at the same time, I mean, then again, who could blame him? It seems like a harmless game. Plays the round of it, gets stuck again, so he doesn't get to go any further. Because I don't think, because like he still gets beaten by the wolf, and then doesn't think too much about it. Because, like I said, it was just a game, but then later starts hallucinating and starts seeing things. Like he starts hearing the noise like when he's on the street and he's walking, and you've got the sound effects of the snow underneath him because he's like, what the heck? Like I'm starting to hear like I'm walking on snow. And then it's not there. And then all of a sudden he's seeing like images of it, and then a guy he's like, hey, and it jerks him out back into reality, to eventually almost getting hit by a car, to turning around and getting home. And I think was this the one where he walked through his bathroom and then all of this from his hallway and then went straight into the Hall of the Doors.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of the Hall of the Doors, I know this can go a little bit into the world building aspect, but something that didn't line up to me a little bit in the Wall of the Doors is that why did the hallway originally start out like a hallway and then open up to like a single like room with multiple doors? I'll admit
Yeah.
that was a little weird. I was like, was it supposed to change over time? I don't know. That's not addressed. But anyways, he tries every door and then ends up going to the one that lets him in because only one door is going to let you in. And he ends up going into the snowy village and falls in. First person he runs into, Raun Nanzhu. I could make comments about what happens in the novel versus the series, but we're not. Ends up getting saved by Raun Nanzhu. Makes a whole thing about thanking Raun Nanzhu for saving him, only to realize Raun Nanzhu was like quotation marks, only doing it to get the wolf body. Like he's like, I was just using you as bait, man. You were just bait. And then Raun Nanzhu
On brand.
straight up, like exactly. And then this man straight up, not obvious to people who don't know the context that this is a same-sex adaptation, but we know it is. So we also know this man straight up started immediately flirting with Ling Ling. Absolutely. Had him pushed up against a freaking tree. I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the reasons why this series got taken off an hour after being dropped on IG, which thankfully it got dropped and not slowly released. Otherwise, this never would have saw the light of day. And I'm so thankful they were like, let's do this all at once so that it's all out there immediately. Thank goodness they did. But anyways, into like Ling Jiu Shi in general, because I was like spiraling a little bit in the storytelling by talking about that. But this man, like, he's actually really intelligent because he goes into a game where like he immediately like, okay, got it, this is not a hallucination, this is real. Like if this was any other normal person, they would be freaking out, and we saw that in other characters to the point that even Ling Jiu Shi, as he went across the doors, was like he could clock newbies immediately because a lot of times people did freak out, but he didn't. He was like, you know what, I'm just here to see what happens.
Wild.
Like that. He was just there for the ride, and which I do think impressed Raun Nanzhu because this man was just so chill and everything. He did almost call him an idiot though, because like the things that Ling Jiu Shi messed up on was giving his real name.
Yeah,
that Raun Nanzhu, who was Ren Baizhi, called him out for, was like, really? He's like, you're kind of an idiot for that one. You should not be giving your real name.
To the point where in future doors, anytime like Ling Ling like would go to like introduce himself, like Raun Nanzhu would like just like stare him down to make sure like he didn't give his full fucking government name.
He did. I swear he did. And it was so funny. But like this man also was so quick at picking things up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, the biggest aspect of the entire thing went under radar for him, but to be fair, that's understandable. And I will say, because we already said spoilers ahead, that came down to the fact that Raun Nanzhu wasn't a human at all. That went under the radar pretty easily for Ling Jiu Shi because Raun Nanzhu was just good at hiding that. But for every other detail, man was pretty good at it. Like, to the part that we're going to get kind of sad here, even though he was too late, he still pretty quickly by the sound of hearing the clock like strike, realized what was going to happen to Raun Nanzhu and quickly found his way there. Because otherwise, Raun Nanzhu's whole situation with the clock and making it move could have happened without him thinking, okay, what is the clock actually trying to do? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But he clocked, wait a minute, this clock is already, it literally just struck midnight. It can only do one action a day, and it's already doing an action. And immediately, instead of just letting that go through, he was like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. And immediately went to Raun Nanzhu.
Mhm.
Like, he tried to open the door, could not get to the door. And it was just so sad. But, like, this man was so good at picking things up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, he fumbled a few times, but he's a human. He's like a literal human. Unlike Raun Nanzhu, he's a literal human. So, like, he fumbled a few times, but for the most part, man was so good at figuring things out, too. Like, he got himself, I swear, the man talked himself out a lot of door god situations. Like,
Yeah.
one of my favorite interactions this man had was the left-hander. I forgot her
Oh,
name.
I love her.
She's
Yes. Oh,
she might have been, I think, which is funny because almost everyone who's watched the drama will say that's the scariest door, just
I
out of
love
nature
her.
of the way it looks. But I love
I
the door
love
god
her.
from that door. She is her. Actually, I love most of the door gods,
I do
especially the
too.
ones with backstories. That is something that I am so obsessed with.
Mhm.
Especially like I think Xiao Yi was her name or something like that. Which or was it not Xiao Yi? No, Xiao Yi was the little girls. I think it was Xiao Yi, Xiao Tu, and Xiao something else. I can't remember because I remember their
Oh,
names
Fletcher's
being
bird. Yeah.
like yeah, being something along the lines is little one, little something, and then it was, or it
Mhm.
was something. It was like one little, which is little one, and switching it to English, and then one something and one another thing, which was why they ended up laughing about the fact that their parents didn't really try to name the kids because they were like, your
Yeah.
names are clearly not a good attempt at naming triplets. I don't remember their meanings though, because I remember looking into that one point, and that was because I tried to sub it. But it wasn't them. It was what was her name? Like the first door one. I know Xiao something because it was like Snow. I think they used the name Snow on her name as well. But anyways, the door god for the first one, she was very
Yeah.
sweet.
She was.
He also talked his way through that one too.
Mhm.
But the one I was referring to, though, back to the left-hander, though, which still makes sense that it's labeled left-hander when it was her left foot, but
Left leg. But
yada
yeah.
yada.
Whatever. Tomato, tomato. Completely different limb.
But it is what it is. I loved that this man got caught not once, not twice, not even 3 times technically by this girl and survived all times. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
The first time was when this man went into the bathroom to use the bathroom, and the next thing you know, the words start appearing on the wall, and there's a sound where she's like, "Can you read it?" And he's like, "I'm illiterate. No, thank you." Like darts his ass out of there, and then he comes out, and everyone's like, "What happened to you?" And he's like, "How long was I in there for?" I think they were like for like. I think the translation said 10 minutes. I don't think it was actually that long because it's a very long time. You would think they would be worried by then. But they go back, the words are gone. Actually, no, they were just covered with more blood. And they go back, yada yada. And then the second time, the man, okay, this was a dumb move on his part, decides to get up in the middle of the night, go into the hallway, and then is faced with her. And he's like, the writing thing happens again, and he's like, "Yeah, remember I'm illiterate." She's like, "You're funny." Makes a lot of students appear, and then they start chanting the song. She's like, "Can you sing along with them?" And he's like, "No, thank you," and then like runs away. He's like, "I'm good." Runs away, ends up coming across her kaleidoscope, and then that saves him kind of somehow. And I think she's just kind of sees him in a better light. And
Yeah.
then the third time, she's giving him the picture that they need. Like the door god literally is like, "Oh, I'm gonna help you now," you know. And like this man constantly was so good at what he did with the doors that he sealed off the majority of the doors he went
Yeah.
into to the point that he kind of like messed them up from ever being used again.
Yeah.
Like the Snow Village, because he solved it in the way he did, where instead of just escaping and letting the door keep happening, instead they brought the family back together.
Yeah.
And so therefore the story had been solved like completely. Or in Left-Handers, having them reunite in the situation they did also destroyed the door. Or with the Man in the Dark, which is the lady with the baby and like
Yeah.
the lanterns and stuff like
And the
that,
pig mask.
also solved that one. Which, to be fair, got a little disturbing because his friend, who we never see in the series, who created the game, kept a little message in the little boy, which was
Yeah,
okay,
wild.
cool. That was wild. But Ling Jiu Shi, like his intelligence, I'll give it to him. Very good. Like
Mhm.
like they said, he was meant for the doors. I don't think anyone should be meant for the doors per se, but he was meant for the doors, and he completed those so well. Also, one of his weird abilities that gave him some insane
Yeah.
leverage was to be able to
To hear,
hear
yeah.
very well.
Mhm.
Like, extremely well.
Which couldn't be me. I've destroyed my eardrums with loud music. But but, like, good for him, I guess. I do relate to him on the insomnia level, though, because real, which was honestly a disadvantage for him in the doors.
Oh, yeah.
Unless he's next to Renanza, and then they'd sleep fine.
I was just fixing to say that, and the fact that it was very interesting that the man had terrible insomnia. And it was kind of funny because when he first met Renanza, I think he used to always ask him, why did this man just sleep so much? And that on top of that, when it came to food, he was always down to
Oh,
eat
yeah.
it. To the point that the more doors he went through, the more he was like, I kind of understand you. Like, I kind of get why you're so casual about
Yeah.
this. Like, you're like, you can't do anything else anyway, so why not get your sleep through certain times? Now, I will say, though, they somehow, at the same time, while making sure they did excellent job getting their sleep in the doors and eating in the doors, they somehow knew how to do that moderately enough that they kept themselves safe,
Most definitely.
which is also insane.
Yeah.
Which did come into play with, like, props and other things, but
Mhm.
still insane
Yeah.
regardless. But, like, branching off, Ling Jiu Shi, we get into Raun Nanzhu, right?
Such a
Who
beautiful man.
turns out to be the ultimate door god.
Mhm.
Like, the final door god.
Yeah.
Technically.
Wild.
Now, was he a door god that enforced anything? Actually, the man did F with people who did stuff
Oh,
indoors. I'm not gonna
absolutely.
lie.
You
That he was in.
You mess with Ling Ling, I mess with you. Like, that's my man.
Technically, you cheat. Actually, yeah, you're right. Because, like, that man, I don't think he particularly cared if someone cheated, but if they did something, like, beyond reasoning of wrong,
Mhm.
oh, he stepped in. Especially
Oh,
if it
yeah.
went towards leaning. So, like, he stepped in. Which is something that I think I remember describing Raun Nanzhu to you, and I was like, Raun Nanzhu's a great guy. I was like, he's amazing. He's great. Only has an attitude to anyone but Ling Jiu Shi. He's fair. I was trying to keep you from thinking he was a red flag. I was like, he's not a red flag. I swear, he's a green little flag. He actually is. He is pretty much a green flag. The
Yeah.
man is crazy, but in somehow a good way.
Just the
Am I wrong?
casual. The man is crazy. Just blatantly.
But he is.
But you're not
This
wrong.
man in the first door alone, got so impatient with an NPC that he took an axe and he was like, the NPC was like, they came to meet with the carpenter,
Mhm.
and because, like, they knew they had to go to him, and he was, yeah, I need you to build confidence. You need to get 3 trees exactly. Make sure it's from, like, the certain, like, I think it was west or something, certain direction, that it has no scars, no bugs in it, no, like, any,
Yeah.
like, damage to it besides you cutting it down. And he's like, you have 3 days exactly. Actually, no, he didn't give them a time set. I take that back. He didn't give them a time set. And they were trying to get a time set. They were like, we know there's got to be a
Yeah.
duration on this. And, like, and they were trying to figure out how quickly they had to hurry to get the
Yeah.
coffin made. And how actually, no, they were trying to get a time set of how long it would take for a coffin to get made.
Yeah.
I take that back. I do remember now. And next thing you know, Raun Nanzhu gets impatient. He's like, all right, that's it. You're not going to tell us how many days? Takes up a whole axe. Everyone's freaking out because he takes the axe and he holds it and he's like, what would happen if you have no bugs, you have no scars, you have this? And then he goes to Vixen to, like, swipe it at the man. And the man's like, he's like, okay, 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. And everyone was like, Oh my god. They were like, we've never once considered threatening an NPC.
Honestly, no one else should try except for Raun Nanzhu.
To be fair, Raun Nanzhu is an NPC. So, like, the man knew what he was doing. Because, and to this day, probably no one has threatened an NPC.
Yeah, because that's
besides
insane
another
work.
NPC, such as Raun Nanzhu.
That's
Like, I
insane
don't
work.
think it is. Because, like, at the time, no one knew he was an NPC.
No.
Like, he was just existing, man. And so...
And then, like, the carpenter, before, like, the next time that they come back to talk to him, hides the axe. And Nanza's just like, smart, you've hidden the axe.
No, what gets better about that is that in that scene, they come up, the carpenter's doing his little talking about the thing, everyone's listening, and in the background you just see Brandon still walking around, looking
for the axe.
And that's when he brings up, and that's where he brings up the thing. He's like, oh, okay, I see you hit the axe. And the carpenter kind of like makes his little face like he's still scared of him. And he's like, that's okay. Ling's like, I got an axe. Like, another axe. So like it didn't even matter that the carpenter hit it. Ling had one for Raun Nanzhu. And so they get their answer. And it was so funny.
Oh, love them.
This man had some attitude, I'm not gonna lie. He also... oh my god, his personality, like, we keep getting out story aspects because a lot of our things we want to say about the characters pulls from things they did in the story, but like this man was so sassy. And I will say he played Shogun played Raun Nanzhu so well for a censored version of Raun Nanzhu, because like you could tell where he was trying very hard to portray the book version of Raun Nanzhu, to the point that the sass level on this man, while it was subtle, it was there. Like, it was like 100% there. Like, he was still able to find ways to somehow flirt with Ling. He was also found ways to anger almost every woman he came in contact with. I swear, I kid you not. I do not joke. Like, Xiao Ke, if I remember correctly, was one of the characters they meet in the first store, which is the girl with, I forgot the other guy's name. When they first enter. And this isn't in the series, but it is in the novel, and I just want to bring it up because it just brings up the sass and how it translates, per se, is that actually, I take it back, it does happen in the series, slightly modified, because in the book, just like in the series, when they're chopping down wood, Raun Nanzhu's just laying back, just watching this man do his own work. Like, there's a lot of other things that happen in the novel that Raun Nanzhu gets a little bit more graphic. But to be fair, fun fact, he was a quote-unquote a girl to everyone in the novel because he was cross-dressing as a woman in the novel versus in the series, he's still a man because they don't do that because it's censored. So he gets by saying a lot more things in the novel, which is crazy. Yeah, it really is. But he did a good job at it. But because he, just like in the novel, he angered a lot of women as he went through doors, like he does in the series. And he would tease them like there was no tomorrow. Like, one of my favorite things that happened, more so in the novel than it did in the series, because I don't think it plays out exactly the same. I do know he still upsets Xiao Ke and like gets on her nerves in
just
the first
on principle.
But absolutely. But in the novel, there's a scene where, if I remember correctly, they were trying to dig up bodies. Now, that's not in the they were digging up bodies of past players, which weren't players in the novel, but we're going to use that in terms of the series, which is not in the series at all, because they use the wolf body, which does not exist in the novel, which is essentially take that as the opposite version, right? Yeah. But in this case, it's a body. So they're trying to dig up some bodies from the log incident that happened. And they were digging, and he's not doing anything. He's just casually eating melon seeds, right? In the translation I read, the one that's currently being made into a physical book is slightly modified. But there is a scene where, like I said, he was eating the melon seeds, and he's just chilling while everyone else is digging. And next thing you know, Xiao Ke is like, aren't you afraid of dying? You know, if you die in this world, you'll die in the real world. And Renbai's just like, yeah, I'm scared. And Xiao Ke is like, how can you say you aren't scared when you're wearing that kind of expression on your face? And Renbai, which is Raun Nanzhu, was like, everyone's reaction is different when you're scared. Some tend to cry. Others may smile and laugh. I personally like to chew on melon seeds. and then proceeds to throw melon seeds on said ground, and then said, "And I even like to litter." And Chaoko's just like stunned that this man just did that. Like that was his response. And like he does so much more. Like I said, that doesn't happen in this series, but it happens in the novel. And he does other things that are very similar in the drama. Like not Tan Zhao Zhao. Like he made a lot of comments to Tan Zhao Zhao just to like upset her. Like there's one scene where like they get out of the elevator and like they're exploring the different levels in the second door, in the Fincher's Bird door, and they as they get to like I think what level was it, like level 6 or something, they start getting lower, right? And she walks out and she's like, "Man, my face feels like it's kind of old and aging and stuff like that." And I don't remember what he said to her exactly, but he insinuated she looked old. Insinuated that she was calling her old, and she was like, "Excuse you," and he just went on to his day.
Yeah.
He was like, and that wasn't even the first time in the door that he did stuff like that to her. There's also another door where it's not her, but it's the girl, what's her name, that was paired up with White Deer. Yeah, with Donghua, right? I can't remember her name, but they were in the door and she liked Donghua, but he knew that Donghua liked
Ran Baizhe.
Ren Baizhe, the female Ren Baizhe, right? And because he had heard rumors and seen photos of by Nanzhu in ancient clothing that made him look like a girl, and so he had a crush on Baizhe, who was Ren Nanzhu but didn't know it.
He thought it was his sister.
And so he's like over here, and he just, and because he knows all these connections, he starts like teasing the crap out of the girl and like being like, they start having a whole battle with like who can eat the most amount of chicken. And like they're like, one, I want to order one, I want to order two, I want to order three, and then they go all the way up to like 7 or 8. And at that point, I don't remember if it was Ling Ling or if it was Donghua, but they were like, okay, you know, we're just gonna get the chicken, we'll see what happens, right? And so it was just so funny because like this man would always do something to the women in these doors just for the heck of it, for the fun of it. Not in a mean way. Like honestly, I don't think he ever went too far. It was just a very teasing kind of behavior just because he could do it. He also loved to tease anyone who came close to Ling Ling too. So like Donghua, when Donghua tried to come at Ling Ling for things, or like he didn't even come at Ling Ling, he made it so that he would come at Ling Ling, actually. As long as he didn't overstep and do anything to Ling Ling, he purposely set up things. So like when he found out that Donghua liked Baizhe, one, he used that to his advantage.
Oh, yes.
Like there was no tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, no tomorrow. Like he did so many other things that happened outside of the door and in the door, and then when they end up meeting in the door for left-hander, this man was like, "Oh, you know, I think I would set up my sister with someone like Ling Ling." It's like, I think he would be a great match with my sister, and like just kept leaning into it. Like there was like, it was so funny.
Ling Ling was immediately so done about it, but knew he couldn't do anything to stop it. So he just had to go with it.
And then Raun Nanzhu ended up being so like devastated when off to the side, the girl and Ling Ling had a whole conversation, which led to Ling Ling telling him that Baizhe was Nanzhu.
Yeah.
And so when she found out about the whole thing that was happening, she was now having a field day.
Yeah.
She was now happy about the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because she was like, "Oh my god."
She's like, actually, this is hilarious.
So funny.
There's no threat to a possibility of me and him becoming lovers. This is fine now.
Oh, there was, but very different one.
Hey.
Just saying.
Till death do they part.
Oh, death do they part, for sure. She takes over White Deer, which does not go well for her, actually.
Unfortunately.
It took, unfortunately, Nanzhu to step up, to be like, she has my backing.
Yeah.
You calm down.
White Deer and Obsidian are now best buds. Back the fuck off, essentially.
That's pretty much what happened. But Raun Nanzhu was crazy, but I loved him so much. Mad respectful, too. He was interesting, now that I think about it, because he almost had 2 different personalities to a certain degree. Because the man loved acting when he was in the door. Yeah. But if he was outside the door, he was so serious. Which was...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting in a good way, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I actually liked it. I loved seeing that dynamic happen every time you go out the door. There is novel aspects to that, too. that play as well to why it happens that way. But I don't know. I love that.
We love him though.
There's definitely more we
Oh,
could say, but we
absolutely.
probably should
We
move
probably
on.
should.
Which I don't know about you, but if I'm gonna move on, it's gonna be the twins.
I was gonna say that too.
Specifically, Chun-Li.
I was actually going to make the segue of we talked about badly named triplets. So let's go and like shift focus to badly named twins.
Oh, I love that. That would have been a great one. Okay, yeah, I love that one. That is great because their name is insane. Because I actually, so I learned how what their name actually meant because there sometimes things don't translate well in
Yeah.
subtitles forms. I came across the scene where the twins get met, and it's the scene after he meets Xing Shanli, which Xing Shanli we meet the car because he picks him up and ends up driving it. I still never understood his driver license thing because I tried to look into the age thing because like he makes a comment when he gets in the car because he's like, "How old are you?" And he apparently gives an age that's underage for driving, and he's like, or it's just very new to driving. I can't remember. And Ling Jiu's like, "Can I offer to drive?" And they're like, "No." Which, oh my god, I've got to state this. I have to. I know I keep bouncing back to the novel, but when they got to the door, the driving scene one, it was so hilarious because he gets into the car and immediately clocks how young the Shen-Li is, and immediately is like, how old are you and how much can you drive? And they get this whole thing pulled out, right, about his age and whatnot and stuff like that. And Raun Nanzhu is just over here and he's like, he makes a comment about how he was impressed because he's like, out of all the people that I've picked up and done stuff like that, you're the first one to actually question the age of this boy. Like, you're the first one to clock that something wasn't right about this whole thing, which was sparked by the fact that I don't remember the full details because it has been a while. Ling Jiu Shi, like, not Ling Jiu Shi, Xing Shanli, like, doesn't get cocky, but he gets a little cocky and like tells him to like, mind his business. We're gonna go, only for them to pull around a corner and get stopped by a police checking. So where I think Nanza and Linda had to switch seats secretly before the cop showed up. And if I remember correctly, which is not very deeply described. I think it's just briefly in like a paragraph described. And Ling Jiu Shi just took that as like instant karma. and it's just so funny to me. But like he's met him that way, but then he meets his twin when he goes to the top of the stairs after being told where his bedroom is, and then he runs into him and he's like, "Oh, how did you get up here so quickly?" And Xing Li, who was not up there, so Xing Yisha is like, "I'm not Xing Li. Xing my younger brother. I am his older twin, Yisha, Qing Yisha." And immediately, Ling Jiu clocks their names. And he's like, "Oh, that's kind of funny. Qing Yisha, Qing Shen-Li." And he's like, "So like water running vigorously," which I think is something allures to some sort of meaning of, I don't remember the full detail, but it's like something about water stream, like the velocity and falling and whatnot, which is like something kind of funny that it refers to. And immediately the man just, And so Ling Jiu Shi goes back down. And oh no, he doesn't go down. The brother disappears. Shen-Li shows up and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I have a twin brother. Isha, do not mention our names." And then he's like, "Oh, great timing. Thank you." And he's like, "Oh," like the man walked away thinking he was proud of himself, but like Isha had already messed up. And it was so funny. But like for the twins, I love their dynamic. It is unfortunate that they portray the older one to be very mean, but we do learn that is because he's very protective and he was trying to be the older one and trying to keep Shen-Li safe, and which is very sad.
Which makes their ending so much worse.
Absolutely. And
I cried like a baby.
And then I love how Shen-Li was very careless and very childish. He still was all the way to the end, but he got better, which probably led to his downfall somehow, in the sense of like he was trying to be the more responsible one, because like he was the first one to clock who had the scissors. He was the person who clocked who realized what was going to happen, and so he ran, stopped his brother from opening the door, opened the box, and ended up being the one dragged in. And so it's so rough, and then end up dying for it. But like their dynamic is so hard because his brother did everything because his younger one got brought in with him, and he tried to be so serious, and to the point that I don't remember how heavily it's dressed in the series versus the novel, but it is addressed in the series, is the fact that he actually tried to cheat his way through the
Yeah.
doors. He did one of the worst ways possible to cheat through a door. I do know he did it in the novel, but I think it was barely brought up in the series that Raun Nanzhu was like, you can't do this. Karma will catch up to you. And unfortunately, that karma took his young
Yeah.
brother's life, which is the worst outcome he ever expected, because his whole point of everything he did was for his younger brother, and only to be met with that being the karma he got out of it. And I don't know if anyone else realized that, but yeah, that was, at least it's brought up in the novel wise, why mostly Chin Li was the one that ended up receiving the end, because it was one of those situations where karma was like, you're asking for the protection of this, so therefore we'll take the protection of
which
that
is
and completely destroy it because of what you did.
mega fucked up. But that's just this entire series.
And I would have loved more details about that outcome, because like I said, it's not mentioned heavily like at all in the series, but it's
Yeah.
there.
It's more inferred in the series compared to the novel.
And in the novel, I still think it's more of a touch here
Yeah.
and go, but it's more further elaborate a little bit of what went on and caused it. But those two,
Same.
Would have liked more of the older brother, but I get why we got pretty much just the younger
Yeah.
one. And I also get that in the sense of a writing standpoint in trying to grab audience, especially when you want to jerk at their heartstrings.
they did.
In the end, is get them heavily attached to a specific character and not the other one. Then you heavily have that ending effect of when you lose that twin, the one you've been constantly seeing, it really hurts.
And it hurt. It hurts a lot.
Didn't you guess
that Chin Li was gonna die? Yeah. Yeah. It didn't make it better though.
I remember guessing it too. I think, yeah, because like I remember when I watched it and I was like, I already knew from spoilers that Nanzhu's things was gonna happen, and I knew he was gonna survive it. But because of that, I knew that in order to get through this door, a death was gonna take place. And I knew from every other thing that had been happening, especially with Shan Li, I was like, it's going to
it
be
has
him.
to be. So like, even though I saw it coming, it didn't make it better. I don't know if Nyxi still has them, but we watched this as a part of an exchange we did where like we would watch over like a video call, like we would watch a series together, and this was her choice for her to show me, and like she has like recordings of any time that she thought I was going to cry. Nanza's death, Chin Li's death, or two big ones. Wild times.
I told you, I said there was going to be 3 deaths, and I hid the fact that Nanzhu was technically one. And I wasn't wrong. I didn't lie. There were 3 deaths. I just didn't tell you there was going to be a fake death.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
And you were like, so surprised.
Yeah, that was... Frankly, that was fucked up.
It's okay. Moving on.
The only thing that, like, kind of slipped through the crack in earlier discussion was when we were talking about, like, how, like, this show, like, barely passed censorship and then didn't pass censorship at all immediately upon release.
Yeah.
And, like, I still think about this sometimes because it is just so out of left field and it was fucking wild. But the whole scene where Ling Ling's like, you can call me daddy. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I do think that played in something in Chinese culture that could have flown on the radar, but for everyone else, that did not fall
That
under
was
the radar.
insane. He's like, you can call me Baba. And I'm like, no, stop it. That's all. Like, I just couldn't let that go. Because if I have to live with it, everyone else has to live with it as well.
I mean, fair.
Moving on.
Having explored character constellations, let's shine a light on Drama Deep Dive, where new stars await.
Let's dive into a drama deep dive, where we navigate an analysis of key scenes, character arcs, plot twists, and emotional gravity that pull us deeper into the stories we love.
I think we've already talked a lot about the story plot in the terms of trying to talk about the characters, but that's fine. There's so much that
we talked a lot in particular about Door 1, Snowy Village.
Oh, I could still go on about that door.
I really like that door.
Mainly because I have such a prominent memory of, like, I'm not going to do it here and talk about it, but about just how much of a menace Raun Nanzhu was in that
Yeah.
door. Like, I have so much to
Yeah.
say about it. And more particularly, the novel version.
That's fair.
Like, yes, it happened also in the series too. Like, especially the scene where Raun Nanzhu and Ling Ling are sleeping in the bed, and Ling Ling wakes up in the middle of
Yeah.
the night and just sees a figure at the end of the bed. In the series, I think he immediately clocked the figure as something weird and then broke up Nanzhu and then ran. But in the novel, I have to bring it up. It's one of my favorite moments because like, for stars, again, keep in mind that Raun Nanzhu is Baizhi as a girl cross-dressed in the novel. And so he's sleeping next to what he thinks is a woman. And so he wakes up, sees a woman standing at the end of the bed, and he's just like, Raun Nanzhu, Baizhi, what are you doing? Like, why are you up in the middle of the night? And then I don't remember how it spoke, but it started saying things back to him in the same voice as Baizhi. And then he starts like clocking the behavior. Actually, no, he kept talking to her for a second. And then next thing you know, he hears something come next to him. And then he realizes Bai's just sleeping next to him. So the person at the end of the bed can't be Baizhi. And so he makes some comment under his breath where he's like, damn, he's like, please don't. I only have one pair of underwear. Like, because he gets slightly scared. And he's just like, I'm a man of science. I'm a man of science. Like, I can't. He's like, I don't believe in this weird stuff. And so he slaps Baizhi awake. I'm like almost pretty much dead serious. Slaps his man awake. Baizhi wakes up and he's like, oh my God, like, why are you waking me up? Sees the woman at the end of the bed and he's like, immediately is like, Ling Ling, I can't believe you. You bring a woman into our room. What does she have that I don't have? And as he's talking about this, though, the woman's head starts like growing, like the neck of it just starts growing and then perceivably starts turning and everything. Clocks immediately. Yeah, very
Hate
terrifying. Especially
that.
if you're reading this in the dark. Very terrified. Immediately, Ling just like, shut up and run. And so they start running, and Baizhi runs so fast that Ling Ling goes, can't you fucking run slowly? And Baizhi's like, I'll be dead if I run any fucking slower. And Ling just mentally goes, ah, women. and it's so funny to me because he's not, for starters. And then like another funny scene that happens, like he was a menace, especially in the first door and especially in the novel, because like there's a whole nother scene where like it's after the next morning and they found the body on the roof, right? And Ling Jiu Shi comes back to tell Baizhi about what happened, but he starts noticing something on the ceiling, so he's just like staring at the ceiling. Or sorry, Baizhi's just staring at the ceiling, which is where like the blood dripped through the roof, which does happen in the series, but the words don't. The choice of conversation doesn't happen. And Ling just shows like, "What are you looking at?" And Baizhi responds, "I'm staring at the ceiling. What else am I supposed to see besides this? A starry sky? Dreams?" Like, and he just like that mutes Ling Jiu Shi. Man has some top tier sass
Yeah.
in the novel, and in the series it's kind of there. It's just portrayed very differently because it's censored, but like it's still so funny to me. But like I can't. The reason why I just love talking about the first story is, like I said, there's so much that happens in that one that's just so funny and whatnot. But like
We have our favorite.
we do. But like other story parts getting back into the actual series itself outside of the novel. So some of this stuff has been some spoilers for the novel if you haven't read it. But back into the series, there's a lot of things that goes on, especially if you were to deep dive to door by door.
Which we do not have the time to do, unfortunately.
No, we don't. Though as much as I would love to go, not necessarily door by door, but across most doors. Because like almost, and I say almost, the latter half didn't have it as heavily, but almost all the doors consecutively had stories behind them. Now, to be fair, the latter half didn't, probably due to the fact that we had to progress to get to the end.
And
like,
the last two doors are completely different.
Like the Sunny Doll one, we don't have a typical door god. The door god's very different. The door god is more so like the Sunny Doll itself, and not really I would argue and say it's not really the man that that's enforcing any of it. It's
Yeah.
really the doll, even though we don't see the doll like we do in other ones, which technically this door technically still has a story because it has something to do with the teacher and whatnot, but it's not heavily
Yeah.
dealt with like the other ones. And then for sure, the 10th door, which is the girl in the
Mhm.
box door, also does not have a heavy story that I can remember. Rephrase that. And more so, it was literally just
Yeah.
a game format, like a direct game format, and they just randomly had to open boxes, rules.
Kind of weirdly, reminiscent of, like, Russian roulette just with boxes.
Yeah, pretty much was what it was. To go into like some doors, I think the longest door we spent time in was the left-hander due to
Mhm.
the insane deep dive of
Yeah.
the story for that one of
It's so
bullying and
Left-Hander's
then
Door is so good.
yes, we had so much stories. We had
Mhm.
misleading. We had some herons for sure in this red herrings due to the way that they would the last two surviving kids would like pin it on
Yeah.
each other and then only for Ling Jiu Shi to try to find out through the actual throughout her the girl, I can't remember her name, through her help
Yeah.
to be honest led to them figuring it out. You know, something I just realized that I didn't think about, but you know, Ling Jiu Shi had his own abilities with hearing, but Nenza
Yeah.
did too because his sight was way better than anyone else's. Like he could see things people couldn't. One, he could see people like he could see things that
Yeah.
people couldn't and see, and he could see things that much clearer than people could see.
Yeah.
So he was a very interesting character with that aspect. But that was an interesting element. There was so much given in terms of like storytelling in this that was really, really nicely done.
But I will say a lot of people talk about how they think Left-Hander's Door is the most scary. Like, I wouldn't say the one that I think is the most scary is, like, necessarily the most scary, but it is personally, in my opinion, the most unsettling is Sister Drum. I don't know what the fuck they were on for that one.
Oh, because of
I don't
the
like the
skin
skin
stuff.
stuff.
To be fair, I think I could be wrong, but I think we were pulling from things like not necessarily Aztecs, but like we're pulling
Mhm.
from things way more different
Yeah.
cultures for sure. As in terms of like just maybe more so probably more so stereotypical
Mhm.
kind of things. But we're with like the drum and like if you make a drum out of your own skin, you're supposed to make a wish, be able to make a wish.
Insane.
Because you mean to tell me the sister made a drum out of her own skin, which was to be her sister, took her sister's skin to be her, to do that, and essentially tried to fall for her lover, who I still don't know what
Yeah.
happened to their lover, to the love interest, only for Ling Ling to come into play. Which honestly, what I think it is that it's probably whoever she
Mhm.
first runs into more so. Because remember, Ling Ling was supposedly the visual same
Yeah.
appearance as him. But I have a feeling that if this is a door that, like any door, is supposed to repeat multiple times, I feel like that figure constantly
Yeah.
changes based on the interaction. And I assume the first interaction. And he just happened to be the one who, of course, ran
Because
into
of
her
course.
first and was nice to her. So, yeah.
'Cause Ling Ling's
And
just nice like that.
that's the one door where I don't think I particularly liked the door god.
That's fair.
I don't even think her sister. Then again, we didn't really get
Yeah.
her sister per se. She wasn't particularly nice at some point. You do realize that Ling Ling got put practically in a coma
Yeah.
after coming out of that door
I didn't
because
say it
she
was
hit
my
him.
favorite. I said it was the most unsettling.
Oh, no. That's not what I was getting at. I was just explaining that.
But yeah.
Which, fun fact, I can't remember if it happens the same way in the drama, but I know in the book that if you get injured in the doors, then no matter how small that injury is or how big that injury is, it can almost always guarantee to put you in some sort of
Yeah.
bad state once you get out because it manifests much bigger outside the door.
Yeah.
Now, I think it did play into some sort of something that made sense to a certain degree, but I can't remember the whole logic behind it because, like, I do know I think it somehow stayed relatively the same with the novel in the series because that's probably why he ended up in a coma, even though the man had just been hit
Yeah.
in the back. That was
On the
it.
way out the door, literally.
And I remember he came out and they were trying to talk to him, and next thing you know, he starts
Yeah.
falling forward because it hits him And he's like, oh, can't do this.
Actually, no, I'm down.
And then he turns around and wakes up. I am curious to how many days did it take him to recover after the Lady in the Rain door,
Yeah.
which is the
hmm
frames and the picture stuff door? Because that door ended with him trying to go into the painting world, essentially, or the frame world, however you want to call it. Goes into it and gets caught by her, throws the key out to
Yeah.
sacrifice himself,
To
only
be
for
like,
Nenza to
no.
come in and save him as
Incorrect.
he's nearly dead.
Incorrect. That is not happening
Exactly.
today. Or ever.
Grabs it. Anyways, it comes in, saves him, ends up getting beaten
hmm
practically by the picture frame until Tenzazo, I think, is the one that ends up saving him again. And this is the second time this girl has stepped up, and I'm so proud of
Yes.
her. I'm so devastated that her first solo
Yeah.
mission went wrong. But she did a
hmm
good job, actually. She stepped up, talked to her about moving on and like pull yourself together. You know, a man, you shouldn't let a man let you go this low and whatnot. Which I think essentially was like the same thing
Yeah.
she told the lady in the nursing home one. But
Girl has one mission to for female empowerment, you know? And just gotta tell everyone.
yeah, for
And we love
real.
her for it.
But like we came out of the door, Ling Ling, I think it took a few days. I think it was Shen Li that told him what happened in the door. And then he goes to see Nenza, and Nenza is
Yeah.
still bedridden. It takes a few days.
And Nanza uses that to his advantage.
You better bet he's going to use that to his advantage.
Just have Ling Ling dote on him? Absolutely. We've journeyed through character constellations and drama deep dive, but now let's explore uncharted elements for one last perspective.
By exploring uncharted elements, we highlight the unique aspects of the show, the bold twist, fresh ideas, and defining features that set it apart. Honestly, the whole concept is kind
Yeah.
of fresh. It is and it isn't, per se, but it is pretty fresh compared to most things in media right now.
Yeah.
That I know of, put it that way. I don't watch a lot of horror or thriller stuff, but it was for me.
Yeah, this is an insane favorite for Nyxi, considering she's not a horror fan at all. And it has to be very specific thriller for her to even enjoy it. But Nyxi loves this series so much. It
Understatement.
truly is.
Adore it so
A
much.
door? Like the doors?
Oh my god. I can't with you. Get out.
I'll leave.
Get out.
I can leave, that's fine.
One of my favorite elements, and I feel like this is the part where Cyrus said I can go as far as I want with talking about the novel, which to be fair, I have been doing already. Look, I couldn't resist talking about some of the comparisons in the novels, and I
It's
know I
fine.
shouldn't to the series, but it's so cool to like think about. Like for starters, I've already brought it up before and I'll bring it up a little bit more in detail is I'm obsessed with the fact that versus the novel, because I think there's some aspects that I think the novel did better, and there's some things I think the series did better.
As do all things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the things that I think the series did better was the fact that door gods get this whole backing and this whole backstory, and they get meaning to themselves. They actually get names. They get so much other things versus the book, where I think only a few, or maybe not even a few, most of them were just these big identities that were just there to, just be the scary
Yeah.
factor, to be honest. Like, there really wasn't a full purpose to it. Like, for example, like, oh, the poor girl, like, the poor first one, the first door, like I said, I can't remember, Xiao something, or something Xiao. The girl in the first door for the series, in the novel, she was just this giant, like, shrine, like, figure who, like, constantly, yes, she was covered in hair, so she didn't really have a face. She was able to expand herself, her neck, her body. She was able to be a giant figure as well. Like, I remember she wielded an axe. They went to the shrine when they had the shrine scene that happens in the series. She ended up coming out of the shrine pillars and then ended up this giant figure, and they all started running back, and the people who prayed together in groups or in twos were protected, and the ones that weren't got attacked. And it was this whole thing, and to the point that one of my scariest scenes that I think the only time I ever had to cut the light on I never had to cut the light on for the series. For some reason, it was never too scary for me to ever feel the need to cut a light on. But in the book, on the other hand, I did have to cut it on like a few times because there's a scene in the first door where they, after the bodies they find, they throw into the well, they end up having to run away from her and they end up in the courtyard and they're staring back. And the fence is stated to be about like 10 feet long, but they just see her head peeking over the fence. And like again, 10 feet long. And even creepier is the fact that she makes a comment about the food that they had given her and that they could swear even though her mouth was not moving, they were hearing noises like something was being
That's
eaten.
unsettling.
Yes. And then it ends before she did, like I think this went on all the way until morning and then it ends with like what Ling Jiu Shi said that he swore he saw, like almost maybe he thought it was an illusion of her like burping, being, oh, I'm good, and then leaves in the morning. Like that's all she
Yeah.
was, and then she gets out of the door. Versus in the series, he's able to like completely change the door by like revealing what happened with the I think what they
Yeah.
call it, wolf plague or
And,
something
like,
like
them
that.
sacrificing her.
Mm-hmm. Versus one parent hated that the chief, which is the dad, let her get sacrificed, while the chief was like, I had to do
Yeah.
my people over that. And the whole thing left her to feel abandoned to a certain degree. And so, therefore, it was just a whole issue. And we don't get that in the novel, but I love that the series gives
Yeah.
them this beautiful storytelling for each door. I also love how each door is very
Mhm.
creative. Now, fun fact, there are I can't remember. Been long enough that I can't remember. I don't think there's a door that doesn't exist in the series that exists in the novel. I could be wrong, or maybe I'm just not remembering correctly because I think pretty much all the doors have equivalents that are needed in the series. Unless there's one I'm forgetting that doesn't exist. I thought at one point someone said left-hander didn't exist in the novel, and then I came across it in the novel and was like, okay, so that's not right. So I could be wrong. Maybe some door doesn't exist, but I think I remember all the doors existing in the novel, but there were doors in the novel that don't exist in the series, which is pretty cool. But one of the biggest other aspects that I really thought was unique is that, like I said, we get a virtual reality in the
Mm.
series. In the novel, it's not a virtual
No.
reality. It's a situation where, like, if you meet death, like for example, after Ling Jiu Shi entered the door, as soon as he got out, Nanzi ordered either I think, can't remember which person, Qing Yi, I don't remember. He ordered one of the other ones to find out what happened with Ling Jiu Shi, and Ling Jiu Shi was kind of very confused, only to find out it was because he had, I think it was like liver cancer or something like that, and apparently that's
Mm.
what sent him into the doors. It was like essentially it's the idea that you get, if you're approaching death, not everyone's blessed with this possibility, but if you're approaching death, you will typically end up meeting these doors as a challenge to ideally get to be alive again
Yeah.
or like go fresh start kind of essentially. I do remember that if you made it past your first door, you wouldn't reset, but your issues or whatever it was, depending on what it was, would like say, I think Ling Jiu Shi was like a, what's the what how many stages of cancer are there? He was in a critical state apparently, but after he made it through his first door, he went back to like the lowest state, like level 1. Like it was because it reset him, because what it does is it prolongs as he goes through the doors. So in order to prolong, it just pushes it back. But this could be any kind of death. This could be murder. This can be all this. Like if it was something that was going to come at some point, then it was you meet the doors. And so interesting enough, the novel. So yeah, so interesting enough, the novel was
Yeah.
death in the situation of getting a new start, while the series based it on virtual reality, which were
Yeah.
both really cool aspects.
Very different.
I loved how both of those were portrayed. Another cool thing, I think the book did better on this one than the series did, or at least it's not addressed as heavily in the series, is the fact that, like I said, the series did better with the door gods, but the book did better with handling the masking of characters. So if you went into a door, you would take on some modified form of yourself. Maybe you lose height. Maybe your facial features slightly come out different. So therefore, you cannot be identified when you get out of the door, which is kind of funny because apparently Raun Nanzhu, who technically looks handsome both ways, apparently, but somehow looks even better through the door, especially
Yeah.
if he's Baicha, because apparently if he's Baicha, he really comes out looking feminine through that door, because usually his wig somehow adds to that reason why the door gives him that look. And he would go through the door, and it's kind of funny because the first time Ling Jiu Shi finally got to look into a mirror, I think was the second door, because Nanza told him about it, and he looks into his mirror, and he kind of was disappointed because apparently it downgraded his looks. But at the same time, he made a comment. He said, I don't think Nanza said this. I think he made this as a mental comment, but he was like, man, I look like the guy that a girl would befriend and turn down and just be friends with instead of going out with.
That straight sucks.
Like the cute boy, like the cute friend kind of situation, but like not one you would date.
That straight sucks.
Nanza said he was still adorable.
But Nanza is biased, okay? That man is in love with him.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was so funny. But that's what I liked about the novel, is I liked how they would change. I don't know, there's a lot of aspects that were very different from the two. If it wasn't for the fact that the stories pretty much still follow each other, this is definitely one where like there's enough difference in between the two that they feel more like remakes rather than adaptations to a certain degree, because that's
Cousins,
how much of a
not
change
sisters.
has happened between the two, and I'm not mad about it. Yeah, sure. I would have been like, so sisters not twins, but yeah,
Close enough.
good enough.
Similar vibes.
So there's definitely a lot of differences that go on between the two. I'm not mad at it. I actually like it because I love differences to begin with anyways between things. Depending on how it's dealt with. Let me rephrase that. When you're dealing with adaptations, that can be tricky.
Yeah.
People can be mad about differences. I think I'm more okay with differences if it eventually helps it in the end. One of my favorite things for adaptations is because you usually have more minds behind it than like the author has when they're writing their story. So therefore more thought goes into it and more collaboration is able to work to be changed in order for it to happen. So therefore I'm usually okay with most of the time. It had to be really bad for me not to like it. But this one I actually do like the adaptation. I think they did a good job changing it from just death on its own to virtual reality, to them looking the same in and outside the door, because that's very hard to portray in a visual media. And there's several other things as well that changed, but those are the key things, as well as removing some of the doors, giving them more attachment to door gods.
Such a good addition.
I don't know, there's just a lot that I really liked element-wise about this series. As we prepare to leave the stars behind, let's gather the stardust of our experience and share our final reflections on the Spirealm.
Such a good series.
I think I cannot express that enough. I think I've expressed that a lot in this whole thing.
And like, trust me, y'all, even though like she's talked pretty much nonstop for this entire episode, imagine that for an entire year, over a year, because that's been my life.
Honestly, yeah.
Welcome to my world for only like an hour or something, however long this episode ends up being.
I could do with more of this series. Oh, I forgot something that got left out. Another big difference is that because they had to change it due to the fact that it was a virtual reality, is that weirdly enough, it was kind of cool to learn, and like it's still a mystery to a certain degree. Like there's two possibilities that Raun Nanzhu was a door god and an NPC in this series. In the book, you could pretty much say he was death himself. Like he was the end. And even more weirdly, this would be a major spoiler, so take out your earbuds, pause it, mute it, or whatever, but I'm going to state it anyways. The ending of the novel, if you're okay with me spoiling this, is even wilder when you find out that when he makes it past the 12th door, he comes back to Obsidian, to being met by everyone as the leader of Obsidian, and no one knows about Nanzhu. Almost like Nanzhu entered his life and inserted himself through those doors.
That's wild.
As he went through those doors. It's a wild concept, because apparently he was the leader the entire time, but he didn't know that, because I think the concept is that possibly the 12th door to a certain degree was the whole novel, because we start back over almost per se, but he comes out.
Huh.
I could be wrong, and I could have read it wrong, but, like, he comes out. Nanza eventually somehow catches up to him, but there's also the idea that Nanza was both. It was almost like the aspect that kind of like, I think it was like Death ends up falling in love. Like, he has a garden, which is like all the souls, and then he ends up falling in love with one of the souls and one of the flowers. And so therefore he ends up living his life with the flower, which is Ling Jiu Shi. Weirdly enough, there was that aspect, and I think there was something else that was
That's
allured to it.
oddly very sweet.
It is. It is. It's not heavily mentioned though, because I think Ling Jiu Shi tried to ask what exactly Nanzo was, and I don't think he gave his full answer. But it was based around the fact that he was pretty much just death. Like, he was the end right there. But he ends up Ling Jiu Shi. They end up. Yeah, it's wild. I'm not gonna lie, and I could be wrong and misinterpret the ending of the novel, but like, and you can tell me. But then again, it could have been. I think it might just be an up for discussion kind of ending per se, other than the fact that it is still a belief that Nanzo kind of just inserted himself.
As an English major, love an ambiguous ending. Oh, beautiful.
Yes, and no, it was ambiguous. It was weird because like they do end up together and they end up doing a lot of stuff afterwards. Like, there's a whole aftermath thing in terms of like, because technically there's a 13th and 14th door. Like, there's more to it. Like, there's like vacation things, stuff like that.
Very fun.
It's so wild.
Interesting.
There's extra stuff, extra doors, but like at the same time, like, it's still like, what? You're like, you mean to tell me this door, like, what? Like, because he walks out, like I said, he's the leader now, and apparently this entire time he was, and no one, like I said, knew who Nanzo was, and I was like, he was never an existing person.
Crazy.
He was someone that was just all there in Ling Jiu Shi's memory this entire time because he was inserted there. It was like he pushed himself. I think it was something along the lines like he pushed himself into Ling Jiu Shi's memories that led up to the ending of the whole thing, but like to the point that apparently Ling Jiu Shi could not tell the difference between his actual memories and the ones with Nanza, because I think it allures to the idea that when he comes out of the door, even though he's trying to find Nanza and figure out where he's at, that it allures to the idea that he possibly has memories of all the doors he entered prior, like the snow door, the other, the snow village, all of that, on his own, and got through on his own, but yet there's just a prominent memory of Nanza somehow being there that he can't shake. That's why I said it's essentially based on the idea that he probably implanted himself in those memories rather than him having actually been there up in, like, very wild is what I want to say.
I've said that.
Like, holy crap, how did he manage to do that? Who knows? But if he is death, then again, it is possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I could have misinterpreted the ending. But that was a wild thing to just discover about just Nanza and like his whole being in the series. Kudos to the writer because it's pretty creative. Pretty darn creative.
That it is.
But love the series, and I think it shows.
Yeah.
A little too much.
Just a little. My only thing that we kind of touched on a little bit throughout the episode, is that like I'm obsessed with how you could see a screenshot inside any particular door and know immediately just from the styling and like the coloring of it exactly what door that was from. So much fun. I was obsessed. Still obsessed, frankly.
To the point that I could be wrong, but like I am like almost 99% sure that the door that we barely see with Zhao Zhao and them coming out of, like it's like them leaving it. We don't even get the door. It's just them helping her and leaving it. That it was the man in the dark. It was the same door that him and Dong Hua go in for his first time alone and ends up unfortunately ending Dong Hua. So, but from like all the lanterns and stuff that was behind them, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the same door, like aesthetically, that they ended up probably just temporarily using to mimic them leaving her that door. I could be wrong, but like I said, it looked like it. It's just they didn't color grade it, or like it was during daytime as well, so they didn't match it up, which probably was intentional
to make it look different. But
I was like,
But if you know, you know.
But I agree. You can take a screenshot pretty much every single door, except for, I think, door 11, due to the fact that it
Yeah.
was a real world situation kind of door. I mean, then again, you probably could still, per se, take a screenshot, but it would get a little more tricky depending on what screenshot it
Yeah.
is in his room or wherever that you took. Like, if you took a picture of the door having been axed in and chopped up, I know damn well that came from the door and not his real world. But, or maybe the clock, maybe. Clock's even tricky depending on what's going on with it. But
overall, visually a masterpiece.
Well, definitely a favorite.
Oh, definitely. Top tier, yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Stars Align Dramas and Dreams podcast, where we meet amongst the stars that illuminate the love stories that light up our universe and connect us all.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share your stardust and thoughts with us. We'd love to hear your comments, favorite moments, or suggestions for what we should explore next.
You can connect with us in the comments or through our socials, as well as our email that are linked in the description. Let's keep the conversation going under the stars.
Until next time, keep dreaming, keep listening, and remember, love always shines brightest in the cosmos.
Bye.